What up, ladies? Welcome back. Today we're talking about having a natural birth at a hospital. If that interests you, check it out. So today I'm gonna give you 7 things to consider if you're trying to have a natural birth at a hospital. First thing to consider if you're trying to have an unmedicated birth at a hospital is doing your best to stay low risk. I know that a lot of times that's not up to you. Pre-existing health issues might be a concern, but all that aside, do what you can to stay low risk. So you're gonna hear me talk about a lot about this. Eat right, stay active. Those 2 things are gonna go a long way. They can do so many wonderful things. And we'll talk about the benefits of that in another chat. Number 2 thing to consider if you're trying to have an unmedicated birth at a hospital is your actual provider. So do your best to find a provider that supports unmedicated births and has experience with unmedicated births and is on board with you on the same page. That's very important. Some things you might want to ask your provider at the beginning of your pregnancy as you begin your care with them are their birthing philosophy, their C-section rates, their episiotomy rates, and their familiarity with unmedicated births. If they've never seen one, they may not know what is normal for an unmedicated birth. Number 3 thing to consider is the actual hospital you're giving birth in. Sometimes you don't have a choice based on your insurance coverage, but if you do, check out all the hospitals you can go to. And don't just choose a hospital because of location. If there's a better hospital that's a few miles away, maybe go to that one. Labor takes a long time. You're probably gonna have enough time to go to the hospital. But as you're checking out hospitals, consider their policies on eating and drinking during labor, their policies on mobility during labor, their policies on induction in case of rupture of membranes before the onset of labor, their policies on how many people can be in the room with you, the policies on the things that you can bring to the hospital, because all that stuff is really gonna impact your birthing experience. Number 4 thing to consider if you're trying to have an unmedicated birth is preparing your partner. Just as you're trying to educate yourself on the labor and delivery process, just as you're trying to educate yourself on ways to cope with the pain during the labor, you need to do the same thing for your partner. They need to know what to expect. They need to know how they can support you, and they need to know what your expectation of their role during that time is going to be for you. You're going to be in a lot of pain, and you're likely going to be in the haze. They're going to have to communicate with your birthing team at the hospital when you get there, probably. So make sure they know the questions to ask. Make sure that they know your preference and why they're doing it, and then they're on board with you. I think that's probably one of the most important things that you need to consider if you're trying to have an unmedicated birth at the hospital. Prepare your partner or whoever's gonna be there with you. Number 5 thing to consider if you're trying to have an unmedicated birth at a hospital is find out whether or not the hospital has everything that you need when you go there. That should have probably been number 4 since I talked to hospitals number 3, but whatever. Find out if the hospital has everything that you're gonna need. So for example, I knew that I wanted to give birth sitting down. I was gonna need to have a birthing stool. Well, if the hospital didn't have it, I was either gonna have to buy one or rent one. Luckily, the hospital that I went to had a birthing stool. Consider the pushing positions that you might wanna go in, how you're gonna try to cope with labor. So if you're gonna need a birthing ball, you know, one of those giant medicine balls to sit on to help you cope with the contractions, you're gonna need to bring that. If you're gonna need tennis balls for counter pressure on your hips during contractions, if you're trying to use aromatherapy, also think about snacks and drinks for you and your partner, because you're not gonna want your partner to leave in the middle of you laboring to go get food, and they might very well need a little boost of energy. So consider that and make sure that's packed and ready to go by your 37th-ish week. Number 6 thing to consider if you're trying to have an unmedicated birth at a hospital is your birth plan. You're likely going to want to write a birth plan just so that you can share with your provider your preferences and the things that you're expecting out of your birthing experience, and make sure that it's short and sweet, bullet point. Your care provider and the team at the hospital when you get there are not gonna wanna read through 2-page 12-font single-spaced birthing wishes for your birth plan, and they're not gonna have the time. So very simple, what you want and what you don't. Talk to your provider so that they can give you feedback before you go into labor, and bring a copy with you in your bag so that you can share with the birthing team, because sometimes they can put it in the system before you go, but sometimes they can't. So have that with you and make it short and sweet. Number 7 thing to consider if you're trying to have an unmedicated birth at a hospital is labor at home as long as you can. The general guideline for heading to the hospital when you're in labor is 411. So when your contractions are about 4 minutes apart, lasting about a minute for an hour. So keep that guideline in mind, but do your best to do the bulk of your labor at home, and consider the fact that your contractions are not all gonna be 4 minutes apart. You have to take the average over an hour, and we'll talk about that in another chat, but consider laboring at home as long as you can before heading to the hospital, because things might slow down when you get there. So keep that in mind. Today's action tip is to go online and check out the hospitals that you can give birth in. Do they seem more progressive? Are they baby friendly, which means that they support breastfeeding? And see which one might be better fit for you. That is all for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. And if you like this video, share with a friend and don't forget to subscribe. This is your experience, so own it. Peace.